Oh my God. Oh my God. There it is. The definitive proof. What do you do when you find a convicted felon selling over $500,000 of sports cards still on COMC? You let the hobby know about it. What's going on? Bowman 1951 here. This is a story unlike anything you've ever heard before. This is certainly a hobby exclusive. It is one I've been working on for a few months now to put all the pieces together. And like I said in my intro, I think I have the definitive proof to finally bring this forward and tell the story of this user account on COMC that has an incredible backstory behind it, and it's still active and selling cards. So I'm gonna have my computer in front of me as we go through some screenshots to kind of unravel this whole story backwards and tell it as it began roughly around October of 2020. Let's get a few things out of the way up front. I am not an attorney. I am not a private investigator. I am somebody that loves this hobby and wants to protect users as much as I can. I want people to know where their source material is coming from. When you uncover something like this, you certainly want to know that the cards that you're purchasing have not been part of an embezzlement scheme. So that's where this story starts, and we are about to get into it. Let's again go backwards about 2 months, and I'll kind of piece it all together as I remember it and how it all came about. Let's get into that now. All right, as I mentioned before, I'm not a private investigator or anything like that. I do have to admit, though, my wife and I like, crime documentaries, the whodunit kind of movies, things of that nature. So this has always kind of like been in my blood, even though I've never done it for work or anything. But there is one group of people who inspire me, and I read probably their posts every single day on Blowout, and that is BODA, B-O-D-A, the Blowout Detective Agency. They have uncovered a massive amount of trimming fraud as it relates to people selling on PWCC and many other places, backtracking through those cards, putting the little fingerprint details of a vintage card from the 50s. Everyone's going to have its own unique identifiers, and they'd be able to pick those out and then figure out what cards may have bumped from like a PSA 4 to a PSA 7 that ended up selling for thousands of dollars more. Go check it out. I'll put some information in the description below. If you've never read about it before, it is fascinating, and there are people behind the scenes still uncovering cards to this day. They've probably found in the hundreds, if not in thousands by this point. So that leaves me to where I started on this story. I think it was mainly happenstance how it began. Let's take a look at this article here from Sports Collectors Daily. So I was just looking around the site one day, and for whatever reason, I stumbled upon this article. Alabama man embezzled nearly $3 million, which he bought cards with. The U.S. Attorney's Office for Northern Alabama says John Jack Willis stole the money over an 18-year period as a member services supervisor at Arab Electric Company in Arab, Alabama. That is an important detail right there, so let's remember Arab Electric Company. He wasn't caught until a routine audit in March by the Tennessee Valley Authority uncovered irregularities. You would think over an 18-year period, a routine audit would have caught it in year 2 or 3. So it is a little interesting that it did take 18 years for this man to be caught. Willis, a married father with children, used the money to buy a home near Auburn University, automobiles to cover living expenses for his college-age children. However, according to the plea agreement, Willis admitted most of the embezzled funds were used to purchase an extensive baseball and football card collection. So that's why this is on Sports Collectors Daily. That is an important piece here as well. There was no word from the U.S. Attorney's Office on exactly what type of cards Willis bought with the money. Aha! I can tell you exactly what cards were bought with this money. Stay tuned for that. So it goes into how he pulled it off, creating deposit slips. He removes cash from the teller's daily deposit bags and then replaced the amount of cash taken with another customer's check of the same amount. So yeah, this is a massive fraud scheme in the millions of dollars. Okay, so again, this was all happenstance in terms of how I kind of pieced it together in the beginning. You have to understand, I am a power user on COMC. Now, I've never really even had more than 2,000 cards for sale, but I'm a massive flipper on there, so I don't submit a lot of my own cards. I go out and buy some that are on sale and then resell them later at a higher price. I've moved like close to 6,000 cards there in the last few years. I'm on the site almost daily, and I recognize a lot of the usernames because of that. So that's a key detail here. So let's go back to the name John Jack Willis. Now, I remembered that they couldn't figure out how he was embezzling cards, but I remembered like a Willis name on COMC itself. So what I did was just Google his name and see what I could find. So a lot of it were the articles in regards to his embezzlement and his sentencing, which we're going to get into later. But then I went out on COMC and I remembered this account, JP Willis 3. So I went out to it and I started poking around. This account has a lot of cards for sale. As of this recording, there are almost 69,000 cards for sale with an original price, get this, $705,000. Now, as of today, they're also running a sale, which puts those cards at $388,000, which is also an interesting piece of the puzzle because John is currently in jail. We're going to get into that, his sentencing, where we stand with that at some point later on in this video. But somebody is still running this account while John is behind bars. So JP Willis 3, I think I'm on the trail as to this might be the guy. So then I head out to Blowout Forums to search for this username, which there weren't many posts about JP Willis 3, so he never really created an account there. We only have users asking questions about his account. Hey, does anybody know who JP Willis 3 is? I'd like to ask them some questions. They have a certain card for sale. I'd like to talk to them behind the scenes. There's no way on COMC for you to talk to a seller. If you're in the card hobby, you love to go out and blow out, maybe just to read there, or you have an account, you don't have an account, whatever. But it's just odd that somebody selling $700,000 worth of cards has no presence anywhere else in the card hobby community. Nothing on Twitter, nothing on Instagram that I can find related to cards. That is also a very, very key piece of evidence moving forward. So, take a look at JP Willis 3's cards here. I have them sorted by price right now. He's got some nice ones. Michael Jordan to number to 30, currently for sale at $660. A George Sisler cut autograph. It's really nice. Derrick Rose, whose stock has fallen considerably. And you can see a few others there. Jeff Gordon autograph number to 10. Now, another key piece. When you go and sort these accounts, you can do it many ways. So I went and sorted JP Willis by the newest cards. What did I discover there? There's nothing newer than 2017. That was very odd. So now the pieces of the puzzle are slowly starting to come together. You would think, even if, especially with somebody that is this active and is running a sale, maybe they'd flip a card from 2018 or 2019 there somewhere along the way. This account has not touched anything 2017 and newer. Again, a very key piece of the evidence involved. All right, so I said before, this story started in October. I thought I was on the trail, but I had no definitive evidence. And ultimately, I ended up reaching out to somebody from BODA. That's why I mentioned them in the beginning. I was like, hey, can you check this out? Something seems off. I was just curious if you could find any more information. That was in October. It is now December, and I just kind of sort of forgot about the story. I didn't have anything definitive up until that point as to what was going on here, and I didn't really know where to take it or what to do. So then, waiting in my inbox, a few days ago actually, was another direct message from a member of BODA saying, hey, check out this Instagram, JP Willis 3. Now, I had searched before, I think in a Google search, when you search for JP Willis 3 Instagram, nothing comes up. I believe the account is private, and that's probably a reason that it ends up staying off Google, so that you can't see any posts within it. So I know like Facebook is siloed. You have to be a logged in user to get through Google to see posts there. Twitter may be the same way. I'm not 100% certain. But when you're logged in as a user on Instagram, you are able to go in and see some details about that person. So I was like, this is interesting. Let's follow up on this direct message here and find out what they're talking about. So I go into the JP Willis 3 account. There's no username picture, as you can see there. They've got 30 followers and 79 following. So no posts. There's nothing I'm going to be able to figure out from any photos. I go into the following on their account and I have a eureka moment. Bam! Arab Electric Cooperative. Why is that so important here? As I mentioned before, Arab Electric Cooperative was the company that this John Willis embezzled from. So criminals, to me, always aren't the brightest. I would have never been able to figure this out if he didn't have the username JP Willis 3 that identifies him by name, right? Like if he was, card guy 123, there's no way I could have ever brought this video to you. But this guy who was embezzling funds since 1990 or so, depending on when he started and went to trial and conviction, I'm flabbergasted that the guy uses his real name on his COMC account, his Instagram account, and this right here was the definitive proof that we are dealing with the same gentleman, JP Willis 3. Let's go back to the article in regards to his sentencing and some of the things that still don't make sense to me that I'm searching for advice on from the community. So leave a comment down below. I'm going to ask a few questions about what to do next with this information and whether I even need to do anything. When somebody viewing this video takes it to the authorities and lets them know that this account is still active. So we are back to the sentencing article from January 9th, 2018 from Birmingham, Alabama. A federal judge today sentenced the former supervisor of an electric co-op in Arab to more than 2 years in prison and ordered him to repay nearly $3 million he embezzled from the co-op this says 8 years, but the other article said 18 years. So that's interesting. There's a discrepancy there. I don't know how to explain that. I'm not going to really dig into that any deeper. It was announced by U.S. Attorney J.E. Town, and it was investigated by U.S. Secret Service agents. There they are, Michael Williams and the Tennessee Valley Authority Acting Inspector General Jill M. Matthews. So those are the people involved in this investigation that potentially could be reached out to and say, hey, this account is certainly linked to this John Willis on COMC. They're actively still selling cards in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Is that money going back to the companies? So we're going to move on here in the article. U.S. District Judge David Proctor sentenced Willis to 2 years and 6 months in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. So 2 years and 6 months from the date that this was made, he's going to be released sometime in mid-2021. So again, this really throws me off. How is his COMC account so active in running these odd sales? Like somebody is doing that behind the scenes, or he's got internet access in prison to try to recoup some of his money. I have no idea. But another very important piece of this, he was ordered to pay $2.98 million in restitution to the Arab Electric Cooperative. So is this part of the plea deal where he's allowed to continue to run this COMC account and then all that money is funneled back over to Arab for this restitution? Is COMC somehow involved where they're required for every sale that goes through to send this money for restitution? I don't know. I thought about reaching out to COMC directly. I thought about reaching out to the attorneys involved here, but I didn't want to get into like any legal issues of recording their phone calls and having to explain to them that I was making this video, because I'd want that on video. Now, eventually I may make a follow-up to this. I may do it off camera or have somebody else do it, like a viewer, as I mentioned before. If they will have any new information to come out, I will certainly create a phase 2 video of this and give everybody an update. The judge also ordered Willis to forfeit the same amount of money to the government as proceeds of his illegal activity. Willis must report to prison April 18th. So it's actually going to be a little longer than mid-2021. He violated the trust of the hardworking members of this co-op by stealing millions of dollars, which he spent primarily on sports collectibles. He literally traded his freedom for $3 million worth of baseball cards. So it goes back to the COMC account and like what was his source material for this. You know, BODA and I talked about this behind the scenes. We have an inkling that he was getting into a lot of breaks and then immediately taking those bigger hits and moving off to COMC as kind of like a money funneling system for himself. Again, he didn't do a great job of hiding his identity if he was embezzling money or hundreds of thousands of dollars. I know, I look back at my history, I have bought a few of these users' cards. So I am in possession, or was in possession, and they've already been flipped out again to some of his cards that he owned, where he embezzled millions upon millions of dollars from his job over years and years, and bought sports cards with them and ultimately put them up for sale. The final line of this is Secret Service and TVA OIG investigate case with Assistant U.S. Attorney David Estes prosecuting. So David Estes might be another person here to potentially contact and reach out to and say, hey, this account is certainly linked to this gentleman. Do you need these funds? Are they being funneled privately back to him and they're still not aware of it? I mean, there's nothing mentioned in any of these articles knowing like what he bought or how many he bought, just that he bought millions of dollars of sports cards. So bottom line, and the reason I did put this video together, one, I think it's really cool that I was able to uncover this with a little help from some quiet birdies behind the scenes. And I just wanted to warn anybody, especially if you're a COMC user or even an eBay user, you could buy these cards indirectly through COMC and not know you're getting them from JP Willis 3, and you're buying stolen goods, stolen property. Maybe you're paying back restitution on the back end. Who knows? This is all kind of like a weird web that I'm still not sure, still wrapping my head around. But wow. I can't believe I found this. I couldn't have done it alone. Thank you again, BODA, for your assist in this matter. Especially the ultimate link was the Instagram account and going back to his company. So that was like, I'm making a video. That's it. I'm 100% certain now this is the same guy. I said maybe I'll reach out to COMC just to see if they are aware of this or if they can even legally tell me that they are aware of this. I don't know. But I would have thought at the very least that they would have pulled all of his cards down and shipped them back to like the district attorney's office to sell them at auction like they do with a lot of convicted felon goods. You know, some drug dealer goes to jail, his car is impounded, and then it goes in front of an auction and you can go buy that car on the secondary market. How that all works, again, I'm not an attorney. I actually did also reach out to an attorney that I know on Twitter. He's not aware of criminal law at all. So he's more on like the sports card side of the house, the legalities surrounding trademarks and copyright infringement, things of that nature, but he didn't know any of the criminal law. So I could bring that info to you here. Okay, I hope I was able to make the case to definitively point out that JP Willis 3 is the convicted felon here, and that we've caught him in the act selling sports cards to this very day. I really appreciate you watching and sticking around to learn about this story. If you aren't already subscribed to my channel, please join in. I would love to have more videos like this if I can find anything related to being a detective out there and uncovering and unraveling stories. I'll see you at the next video. Bowman 1951 out.